Hello and welcome to the Black Teacher Voice. I'm your host, Brittney Washington, and today I have a lot to talk about. I have a special guest, one of my friends and one of my previous colleagues that I've worked with. Miss McRoberts is here today to join us in conversation with our next episode. We're on episode number 2. It's so exciting. Can you truly be yourself at work? So, Miss McRoberts, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, so my name is Charle McRoberts and I am originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but I've been in Chicago for almost 10 years now. This is only my second year as a teacher in a classroom, and I was kind of reflecting a little bit about my journey in school. And from as far back as I can remember, I've always had strong Black female teachers, even starting in early childhood, even before that in daycare. My first teacher, Miss Bush, who is now a congressman in St. Louis, I've always had positive female role models in my life. So thinking about my journey as a teacher, going back to elementary school, my teachers, Miss Pulley, Miss Taylor, Miss Washington, Miss Kennedy, they all guided me throughout my education. And I never wanted to be a teacher, but I've tried to pull their energy now that I am a teacher and stepping into the classroom. So formally, I went to school for occupational therapy. I ended up not getting into the graduate program that I wanted to. So that's when I decided that I wanted to be applied behavior analysis for children with autism. And I did that for about 5 years. And after doing that for about 5 years, early in my 20s, I realized that I was just working so much and in school, but I kind of wanted to take a break and explore myself and my true passion and who I am, which I think that is imperative to being a teacher. You're doing work of the heart. And when you're dwelling in matters of the heart, you have to know who you are. And I think the topic of today is, can you be yourself? Absolutely, yes. But I think you have to go on that journey to find out who you are or start that journey before you enter into a space where you're trying to teach kids about who they are.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm just so happy to have you here today and to get to learn more from you. And, I know this year, this school year was really interesting, just thinking about the pandemic. It was a lot. It was a lot. But you know what? I must say that we got through it. We made some great gains, some great strides, both like for teachers as well as students. And that's one big thing that I had to recognize this year. Like, yeah, like I'm bringing my full whole self, no matter if I feel like afraid or if I feel like, okay, we're on a good path, like we haven't been like shut down or anything. Just to know that we made it through and like, yeah, there's still more to come, still more progress. And we don't know what next year will look like, but, just being hopeful and being who you are and bringing that to the classroom. Because I had some days where I was like, whoa, really? Is this safe? Is this what we should be doing? But that's good. That's good. So what motivates you when you're thinking about like getting up every day, going to work? What motivates you to get started with your day as a Black teacher in education?
As a Black teacher in education, for me, it's always the kids. And I think this year, compared to my first year in the classroom, this year I really got to dwell in that space. Like, it's all about the kids. The more I remind myself of that, the more the politics outside of the classroom, the things that we deal with as Black teachers in the spaces that we work in kind of got pushed to the wayside because this year was very different. And with me teaching in second grade, the previous year I taught in SK. So that was a completely different experience from the one I had this year. But the thing that motivated me was if I don't show up to work, not just physically being there, but being there focused, motivated, ready to go. If I don't show up, what are these kids going to do? They feed off of our energy. So what motivated me every morning to get up, whether I was physically going into school or rolling over, putting on a shirt, logging on to Zoom, was the kids, because this is the work that I'm doing. This is what I signed up for. I think that's also something important for teachers to keep in mind. What is the job that you signed up for? What is your passion? That's always great to bring to the table, but what did you sign up to do? So that helped me every day to know I'm making a difference in these kids' life, whether it's today is going to be the day I make a difference, or they're going to reflect on something 5, 10 years from now, like I do with the teachers that I had. There's going to be something that resonates with them. So I need to bring it every single day. I cannot miss an opportunity to tap into their world. So that is what motivated me every single day, even in such a chaotic year. Trying not to make it about me, because a lot of the things that we deal with in the spaces that we work in that may lack some of the diversity that we need to feel like a community, that could kind of get in the way. So focusing on the kids, really.
I 100% agree. Focus, all the focus on the kiddos.
Mhm.
For me, I think for me, what motivates me the most is just thinking about like how I know that this is where my passion is with working with children, but also just like them being able to experience me as
Mhm.
a teacher and as someone to be a role model each and every day. I think that it just brings so much more value to your classroom community when you show up, just showing up every day, being able
Mhm.
to get them to think about new ideas, new things. Um,
Mhm.
it really it just speaks to who you are as an educator. And when you think about just the process and all the work that we have to do on our end to show up,
Mhm.
this year was a crucial year thinking about all of the things that are happening within our community, within our world, within just, internationally, just so many things that are happening, especially in the Black communities, thinking about all of that trauma and all of
The heaviness.
the heaviness of what it brings, like what you have to bring with you when you come to work.
Mhm.
But just knowing how to be able to manage that in a space, but then also to be real with your kids,
Mhm.
and letting them know like it's okay to not know, it's okay to ask questions. And I think that that motivates me to keep going forward in the work that I'm doing, especially when I think about just like kids that haven't had any experiences with Black teachers.
Mhm.
So I really think it's a lot. It's really a lot to talk about. It's a lot to talk
It is. And I think something that also I had to really resonate on this year was being a teacher is a title. Yes, this is what I like to do. And I love working with children and I love being a part of their growth and development. But that is a title. The person you bring into that position is going to be different from the teacher they had last year, maybe the teacher that you share your space with. So I look at the title of teacher as like, yes, this is a common goal that we have. But you're an individual, I'm an individual. How do we allow our students to learn from our experiences as individuals, not just the title of teacher? Because if you think about that, and also not having too much experience in a traditional setting, but if you think about teacher, it's like, okay, I have a question, you have an answer. And one thing I love about the space that we worked in was we can explore things together. I don't always have an answer, but because I'm confident in myself as a person outside of my role as a teacher, stepping into that role, I know I don't always have to have the answers because we can figure it out together. So I think that's also something important that I really had to take a step back and get comfortable in that space and not knowing, because there was a lot that we did not know about this school year, about the
about.
world outside of school, about just being. A lot of questions went unanswered, or there were a lot of things that we had to explore together. So you have to be comfortable with the unknown as a teacher as well. And I feel like this year solidified that for me.
Amazing. I think you just hit a great point. Like you have to be okay with the unknown.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
hard. It's really
It's
hard.
really
It's
hard.
really
It's
hard.
hard.
But
Mhm.
it's definitely possible when you think about just like your drive and your passion and
Mhm.
being okay with knowing like, yeah, I don't know all the answers. Yeah, I don't have it all, but being able to create that environment for your students to know like if we don't know something, we need to figure it out. We need to see what can we research, what can we do together.
Mhm.
Great point. I think, that's something that I've been loving about the space that we were in, just thinking about in a comparison to a traditional, school route, um, thinking about how we can have that opportunity to be able to do that as
Mhm.
opposed to like, you got to know this, you got to test this, you got to do that, this test. And it's like, okay, yeah, all these tests, but these tests don't define us. I mean, I
Mhm.
learned that as an educator. Like, this educator test doesn't define who I am as a teacher in the
Yep.
classroom. And so we have to be able to move past and move forward when it is a lot of unknown. Uh,
Mhm.
so, I know you were saying that you just started out in teaching. So, what would you say you wish you had known as a Black woman coming into the classroom? What would you have wanted to know, or what do you
Mhm.
think you wish you would have known?
I wish I had known starting out that community is within, like focusing on that and not really relying on the system or the space to provide that. If you're walking into a space where you think that that's what you're going to get and that's what you don't get, it's kind of disheartening. And you take a few steps back, like, whoa, what did I sign up for here? But I wish I had known or had the foresight to go into that setting knowing it's going to be whatever I make it. So, had I gone in the door with my own sense of what I want the community in my classroom to look like before thinking it was already set up, a lot of the logistics may not have got in the way of my teaching or how I felt about entering the space in which I was teaching.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wish I had known that it's going to be whatever I make it. But this being my first time going into the classroom, I'm just going off of what I'm being told, what the teacher before me has laid or has not laid, and kind of wanting to be guided through that journey. In reflecting on my journey, I realized I did a lot of self teaching, and that is okay. That's how I learn in life. So it only makes sense that that's how I learn within this setting that I am working in. So I wish I had known to just continue to weave that through no matter where I'm at.
Of course, of course. And I know, I mean, I'm only about 6 years in, and thinking about how it's just a journey, and you do have to do a lot of like self-teaching, and there are not a lot of support set in place that will always be the answer or the go-to.
Mhm.
And finding, community, yeah, it's from within, but also like community amongst other people within the community to be able to shed light on this is how you do this. This is how you do that. Maybe
Yep.
you should try this. Because there is no one way. And I think that's the point that I want to get out to more people. Like, even in a small space where there are not a lot of Black teachers where I've been,
Mhm.
just because this other Black teacher may be here doesn't mean that me and that Black teacher has the same vibe. Me and that Black, and just really trying to disrupt
Mhm.
this idea that all Black teachers are going to be alike
Yeah.
or bring the same thing to the classroom. Yeah, we may have some cultural things,
Yeah.
characteristics about us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we all are the same. I
Mhm.
know this year and last year, a lot of students were like, "Oh yeah, you look like Miss Such and Such."
Mhm.
And yes, they're recognizing it's more people that look like this other teacher that's a Black teacher, but at the same time, you know, we're
Mhm.
different.
And
And
we all don't have the same experiences. So what we bring to the table is going to be different. And
of
I think
course.
that's also something that we as Black educators have to keep in mind. Not Well, sometimes it can be like for our sake, but for the sake of others that are working with us, we don't all have the same story. So you're not going to get the same thing from all of us. You don't make that assumption with others. So why do you make that assumption with us?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that was something that I really was able to realize as well, working in a space that focuses on diversity and community, and that is where the core of their values lie, but not really seeing the groundwork laid there to show that. So me knowing now, going into that space, who I am as a black teacher versus who another person is as a black teacher is going to be totally different. And that's okay. It should be, because we're all totally different. We all have different experiences. So why not focus on our commonalities, the ones we do have, not just the black teachers, but all teachers, and how do we cultivate more diverse classrooms, not just by gender, identity, culture, but experience as well, because diversity is very broad. But I feel like, especially with everything that's been going on within the past few years, diversity has been narrowed into black.
Man, it's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yep. Yep.
And it's like diversity and hearing people use the term, it's just it's not just a black and white thing. And
No.
you are exactly right. It narrows it down to just that. And it's like, no, but it's so much more.
Hmm.
It's so much more. So any opportunity that I have when that comes up is just like, yeah, no.
Yep.
I have to let you know that it's way more than that.
Hmm.
Especially the context of how people use the term. It drives me
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. Because it's like now diversity is synonymous with black. It's not really, diversity really is, you have pets at home, I don't. Diversity is in your culture, your grandparents may live with you, mine don't. Like diversity is, I may have a mom and dad and you may have two moms. Like diversity is so broad. But and I can't say this about every space, but from my experience with everything that's going on in our communities and how others are trying to reflect on that and learn and understand, it feels like diversity is synonymous with black. So, how many black students do you have? How many black teachers do you have? How many photos of black children are on your website? Like things like that. And that's not what diversity is at all.
Man, if I just had to drop vibes, boom, like 100%, 100%. And I think
Mhm.
my future episode coming up, I'm trying to think about when, maybe in August, is about DEI not being just an acronym, right? It's
Mhm.
so much more, but people use it in the context of like, oh, DEI this and DEI that, and just like throwing it out there. But it's like, do
Yeah.
you really know what those
Mhm.
words mean? Do you really
Mhm.
know how majorly important the work is before just
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, DEI this, DEI, oh yeah, I want to join, I want to sign up." It's like, but do you really know? Do you
Yeah.
really know what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like? What it feels like? What it means, and the representation in schools in general. I mean, just in schools in general, thinking about the shift that we've seen in the last year of like everybody got DEI committee, DEI board, DEI this. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
the
a lot of
question that
work.
I've been asking lately is, well, what did that mean to you prior to like maybe 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Were you using that? Was that a part of your vocabulary then? Was that a part of your promotion or marketing then? Was that a part of your mission statement then? And if it was not, then that lets me know where we are. Because if it's new to you, wow, that says a
Yep.
lot. That says a
That
lot.
definitely says a lot.
Hmm.
Speaks volumes.
Hmm. Yep.
It definitely does. So when we think about our previous episode that just got released, thinking about this
Mhm.
number of just how we have so many teachers in the world.
Mhm.
but it's a very small number of teachers that are Black that are in education or, taking that role into education.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to a Black person that is trying to enter the field of education?
I would first start with suggesting that you do a lot of research on the places that you're applying to because I did not go to school to be a teacher. I do not have a teaching certificate. But what I learned is, although I was in a unique opportunity trying to find placement outside of that, because I don't have those things on paper, that's already going to set me apart from the other teachers. So not only am I a Black woman, but I also don't have the same credentials. Now, although I don't have those credentials, I do have the experience with children. I do have the experience now working within the classroom. But what I'm learning is, especially in the city of Chicago, that does not matter. Even applying to public schools, that does not matter. What do your credentials say? So first, make sure you're really researching the places that you're applying to. What is it that they're looking for? Are they looking for people to come in that they can grow with the school? Are they looking to create a different position to where maybe you don't have to have a teaching certificate, but we can do some training for you to get you to our level of standards where we think you should be as a teacher? I think that's really important because what I quickly learned um, during the pandemic and just trying to plan my future and where I wanted to go in applying to schools was it's a lot of no's because on paper, what is your experience? But that does not even shed any light on what I've learned in the past 2 years as a teacher in the classroom, how I've grown. It denounces my other experience, although I was working with a specific population of children with autism. I personally, I personally feel like if you can do that, you can work in a classroom um, because it's very demanding, but in a different way. So I felt like my patience was already here. Like I'm already good in that department. So what is it that you want me to learn that you feel like I don't have because I don't have these credentials? So yeah, really just making sure you research the places that you want to work and what are they doing to provide professional development? If what you want is a teacher, if what you want is for me to have a teaching certificate, great. But there are places out there that are willing to work with you where you are and grow with you. And those are the kind of spaces that I want to be in. That look at me, they look at my experience, they have me in, they have a conversation with me and get to know me as a person and realize, wow, this person can make a difference in our classroom. Not, wow, you don't have the credentials, so we're just going to completely pass on you. And that's it. And that could
Mhm.
be really disheartening in your journey trying to find places as a teacher, as an educator, or simply just someone that loves working with children. And what I learned that in my experience as a Black woman, you can be of other and apply in the same position and not have the credentials. And it'd be a little bit easier for you. Like, oh, you were a babysitter for 5 years. Great. You'll be perfect in our classroom.
Of course.
And I
And
have
it
a
it's
master's degree. Like my master's degree is part of my master's degree is in early childhood education, but that's not the extent of it. So I have some of the knowledge. So are you willing to grow with me or are you looking for me to come into your already created system and just me fit into that? Or are you looking to grow? Do you want people to show up as who they are or do you want them to already be something?
Man, I've experienced what you just explained, and I'm just sitting here, like, nodding my head, like,
Mhm,
"Yep." I
mhm,
definitely experienced that where I was on that job search trying to, get that first job, and for some reason, the job that I was student teaching at, "Oh, I'm there," and they offer me the job, and because I hadn't passed those, the teacher tests. I hadn't passed those, certification tests yet, and they were like, "Well, our offer's off the table, da 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 da." I was like,
and
"Oh,
so what
wow."
about everything else?
what about all the things that you just spoke to? I mean, I would have been the only Black teacher up in there, so that already spoke to me in a way.
Yeah.
But thinking about how I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna cry about it. I did kind of cry about it because I was in my feelings. I was a little hurt,
Yeah. Because you worked
but
hard and
because I
you
worked hard. I worked hard to prove myself, to
Mhm,
show you that, like, I am something special.
mhm.
And this is how I know, let me speak to this. This is how I know that these systems don't really work to support us in that way, just how you were speaking to, because a few weeks after that, I had moved on. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna finish out the year. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I still try to be this nice, positive person, even though deep down inside I was like hurt by that
Yeah.
because you weren't willing to work with me. And I was like, gone. Started doing my own job search, started looking for other places of employment, and came across this school, public school. Both schools were actually in public school districts, and they were willing to work with me. They
Mhm.
were willing to give me a shot. You know, whether it was provisional or not, they were ready to accept me at where I was at, knowing my journey, knowing my experience, like you said, previous experience with children. And I got that job. Not even like a week later, I get a call from the old principal. Hey, we're just, how's it going? We're hoping to finagle some things. Finagle? I'm gone.
Yeah, that's what I am.
Now you recognize after I've already left that now you want to come back and say, oh, we can finagle some things. When
Mhm,
in the beginning, if you felt that way about me, and this is the systems working, right? The systems, the
mhm.
people in the systems that are compliant within,
Makes it harder.
and I'm just sitting there like, are you serious? Like,
Mhm,
this can't be real.
mhm,
um, but through that experience, I learned that there are places out there that will work with you, that understand. I mean, me too, having a master's degree, I'm like, well, shoot, I went to school a little extra for that, a lot of extra. But just to know that that's how it works with employment
mhm.
and places of employment, it just brings about this like shady kind of feel that you get. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to work there anyways if you was going to be acting like that because you already showed me that you weren't on my side.
Mhm,
You were not advocating for me. You were not seeing in that moment, hey, what are some things we can do? Before I
mhm,
was ready to be bounced around just like this pawn of like, whatever.
mhm. Yep.
And I guarantee you they still don't have a Black teacher at that school. I don't know. I don't know. I could be
But
wrong.
when you operate like that, that's what you get. And I think something that's also important that you touched on is like, as a Black teacher, you have to be special. Like, there has to be something about you that is just, oh, so spectacular and so different. But if everybody else does not come to the table with a special magical superpower. And what I've realized is it's not really a special magical superpower. It's I'm confident in who I am. I'm going to be who I am in any room that I walk in. That's because of that's how I feel about myself. So I'm not going to let you dictate what that looks like. I'm not going to let the parents dictate what that looks like. I'm not even going to let the kids in the classroom dictate what that looks like. I'm going to be me. So what you see as special and different and makes you want to hold on to your Black teacher, it's just me coming to the table as myself. And what I've learned, especially in this last year, is if there's no room for me to be myself, because I'm going to be myself. So if you're not making room on your end for me, that's not the place for me. Because then I can't focus on the kids. I can't focus on my teaching. I'm trying to coddle you with being okay with me. And if you're not
Yep.
okay with me, that's not the place for me,
Yep.
because other people don't have to come to school every day and worry about if they're going to be able to be themselves in the classroom. Just the special magical unicorn Black teachers. That's what I've learned. And it's hard.
Mhm.
It's hard to find spaces where even if that's not the place you're in your journey where you can be comfortable growing in your journey. You have to have a safe space as a teacher as well. Like that is interpersonal work. You're not just working by yourself, you're working with parents, and these are their babies. So you have to be conscious of that. Even when you're talking to them about their children, you have to work with other teachers that are in different places in their journey. That may put up a wall of communication in the work that you need to do. Because if you're not comfortable with yourself, how are you going to teach other children to be comfortable with themselves? At a certain point, the facade and the curtains are going to come down because you're going to have moments in the classroom where you got to be you to educate them about something, whether it has something to do with the curriculum or something in the real world. So if you're not comfortable with yourself, how can you dwell in that space where we need to collaborate with each other? We need to communicate with each other. But you are afraid to say anything to me because you don't know how I'm going to react. That has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. You
With
don't
you.
have any experience with me that has shown you that I don't know how to communicate.
100%. 100%.
And
I'm telling you.
what makes you think as a teacher that I don't know how to communicate? Because you're being stereotypical of the Black teacher. Black does not mean strict. Black does not mean mean. But what I can tell you about my experience for me is respect. Now, how you allow others to respect you may be different with how I allow, well, I don't, there is no negotiating there. Like, I walk in, I demand my respect, period. If that's not how you carry yourself and that's not how things work in your classroom, you don't need to be intimidated by me because that's how I work in my classroom. But if you can't even speak or communicate about something that's going on with the children that we're supposed to be molding, raising, because teachers are raising children too, not just their parents. How much time do kids spend with their teachers?
Hours. Hours,
We're
days,
raising children
months.
too. We're raising children too. So if we can't communicate on the basic things we need to get our job done, that's just professional. The personal on the outside of that is inevitably going to break down. All
Mhm.
because you have a stereotype of what you think a Black teacher should
Mhm.
be. Yeah.
Man, I don't even know what else to say, Miss McRoberts. I really sympathize and understand that perspective so much, as I navigate through different spaces and different schools, and, every school is different and
Mhm.
brings different things to the table. But all in all, there is that stereotype before you even get started, before I even walk into the door,
Mhm.
based upon what I look like, what I'm wearing, how is my hair?
Can
That's
I
a whole
can I
that's a
trust
whole
my
other
kids with
topic.
you? Yeah. Or can I even trust my kids with you? Well, why do you think you couldn't be able to trust your kids with me? That's something else that I've encountered is because of the preconceived notions people have that have nothing to do with teaching or school or classrooms or anything. The feedback that they're giving from this is your first time experiencing a Black teacher. So the feedback that I'm giving you, what you're hearing may not necessarily be what I'm saying, but because you don't trust me as your child's first Black teacher, you're hearing something totally different. So you're misconstruing my words. You're trying to read deeper. Oh, well, what's your motive here? Well, my only motive here is for your child to succeed. What is your motive here in this exchange? Are you trying to flex your power? Are you
Oh,
trying to belittle me as the Black teacher that you don't trust? So that's something that I've also learned. It has helped me to continue to be comfortable in my space. And I have to shout out Miss Kennedy, who I got to spend a lot of time with this year and work with. Her being a teacher of what, 20 plus years, just watching her continuously be herself every day and coming into our space much later in the year, but she commanding, like, well, no, that's not That's not what I said, and that's not where we're going with this conversation. We're talking about your child, and we're talking about what they need to succeed. So that's the conversation. Whatever you're talking about, that's a conversation to be had offline, and not even a conversation to be had with me as a teacher, because that's outside of my pay grade. So let's focus on what we need for your child to succeed in their education. And being able to work with someone like that and see that on a day-to-day basis really empowered me to continue to be myself every day. Like, no, because y'all are yourselves in the way y'all communicate every day, but y'all expect me to continue to be professional, which I am going to do. That's just the type of person that I am. But it's okay for you to be yourself, but it's not okay for me to be mine. And I don't want to work in a space like that, because at the end of the day, yes, we have a common goal, but if I can't bring my personal experiences to the table, which is how I'm going to be able to teach, that how do you learn in life? You do things. You do things, you learn what you do like. You do things, you learn what you don't like. You adjust, you tweak, you do research to find out other ways you can bring those things into the classroom. But it all comes from experience. So if my experience cultivates me, who I am, my whole 28 years of existence, makes me who I am today. If I can't bring that to the classroom, what you're telling me is only the things that are on paper. So only the tests that I take, only the degrees that I have. That's all that's important. And that's not what teaching is. Teaching is not, okay, I'm gonna hold your hand while you learn how to trace your letters. This is 2 + 2 = 4. That's not all teaching is, because I have to know with the kids that they all don't even learn the same. So
Of
how
course.
can you expect all their teachers to be the same if children don't even learn the same? They're gonna need different things. And my experience may allow me to tap into something to realize, oh, I could see support that this child may need because I'm noticing this behavior. Well, if I didn't have this experience in my household or in my culture to know what that behavior means, how would I know how to best support your child? But you're taking that opportunity away when you don't allow me to be myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just appreciate you so much. Ah, all the things, I'm telling you. It's
Yeah.
really all the things.
Hmm.
And I've had to learn that through my journey as well, that these things don't define who we are or what we bring to the classroom as Black educators, but that experience and those moments that you really realize, like, oh, yeah, I can kind of help out in this area.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, but let me do some more research. Let me try to
Hmm.
figure something out. And having that mindset as opposed to you gonna put me in this box of these are the things that I can only do or that teachers should be able to do.
Hmm.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help support us at all. It doesn't help for us to be able to be our full selves.
Hmm.
And we need more teachers to be able to be their full selves
Absolutely.
without the worry. I know I used
Hmm.
to worry a lot about just little stuff. Like, okay, let me think about this before I say it. Let me try to fix this so I don't look this way or
Hmm.
but it's like, no, but if that's who I am and that's what I'm gonna bring to the table, then that's what you have to be able to accept or don't accept.
Yep.
And I have to make something else happen.
Yep. And then it's also like, I am the teacher in the classroom. You see your child in a different light. Yes, you know your child, but I'm doing a completely different, we're working on a different skill set here. So I see them in a completely different light. But if you don't trust me as your child's Black teacher, that means you don't trust the experience they're having in my classroom. So whether they succeed or fail, you're going to find something to associate me with that if you
Mhm.
don't trust me.
And
If they're
that's
not,
that's more work that parents need to be able to do.
yeah.
Right? It's so much more work than just, "I'm gonna drop my child off,"
Hmm.
and, I don't know what their experience is gonna be or having that stereotype put upon their Black educators
Hmm.
before even being like, "Okay, this is some work that I need to do. These are some things that I need to refine and tweak and learn more about before just placing that judgment onto your
Mhm.
child's Black teacher. I
Yeah.
know I've had some white families even apologize to me in the moment, like, "Oh, I don't want this to sound bad. I don't want it to sound in this way." And we're just having a normal conversation.
Yep.
And just thinking about there's a lot of work that our parents have to do to be able to know that they can trust, to have that trust. And then that just speaks to like where they come from in their own personal journey of
Mhm.
the work of understanding culturally the cultural differences, but not that a difference is wrong or incorrect or so out there that it's going to make my child think differently or get rid of their own identity or cultural identity. It's so much more than that. Um, and I think when we think about like diversity and difference, right? You think about the differences, but that's using that moment to capitalize on, yes, I am so grateful that my child has had the opportunity to experience a teacher that looks differently than them,
Yep.
right? Or I am grateful that my child has had the opportunity to have a teacher that looks like them.
Mhm.
And nothing being wrong with either of those scenarios.
Yep. Mhm.
Before even just going there or placing that judgment onto how we are seen, before
Mhm.
we even execute or do wonderful things. I mean, I've done some wonderful things, and thinking about that was my biggest notice when I shifted from public schools to private schools. And I felt a bit hurt deep down inside, like, man, I know I'm moving due to my husband's job and everything.
Mhm.
But I also felt like I was leaving my own, right? My own babies, my own. But then when I got into private schools, recognizing that, wow, they've never experienced or have little experience with Black people.
Mhm. In
And
the world,
no in the
not just
world,
not just in
not just in the
school, but
classroom.
in the world where they live, in their neighborhoods, in the buildings that they live in, their neighbors, the places they go eat, the
Right,
camps that they go to,
right,
their peers in their classrooms. So
right.
yeah, it's a lot because then you take all of that on as a Black teacher, like, oh no way, not in my classroom. But that adds a layer of not really stress because me and you, we know who we are. So okay, well we just this is what it's gonna be.
Right.
But the politics outside of that. You have to get, is it okay for me to read this book? Is it okay for me to talk about this topic? What parent is going to send me an email today because I introduced the topic of slavery to their children because they have no clue what that means. Not even in a way that's not developmentally appropriate for them. Because
But the
I mean,
fact
I'm a
that you're talking
professional
about
and
it, right,
I'm an adult, but the fact that it even came up and they're like hurt, your children are hurt that they're learning about this and they're learning about it from their Black teacher. So they're going to have that connection with, okay, I've never heard this before. So if I do have a question, I'm going to bring it to my Black teacher. When they go home and ask these questions, oh, they're not ready for that. Oh,
mm,
so what you're telling me is you're not preparing your children for the real world. You're preparing them for the world that you want them to live in, which is great. But that's not life. That's not
that's not the
school.
reality.
That's not the reality.
Mm-mm.
So then it becomes a tug of war of, okay, I have to make the decision as a teacher. Do I create a, do I try to replicate the world in my classroom in a way that is digestible for these children and knowing that they're going to go home and talk to their parents about this, which I'm checking the box, yes. But that may be a lot for some Black teachers. If you're already in a space where you don't feel comfortable being yourself, how are you going to feel comfortable bringing the real world into your classroom? And it's solely your responsibility because all of your colleagues, that also don't know, they're looking to you. So not only are
Mhm.
you teaching children, you're teaching adults. And it's a lot.
It is. It's a
It's a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot. But all in all, one thing that I must say is that a piece of advice that I would give to future educators is know that you have to find that place for
Mhm.
you.
Yep.
And knowing when you find that place that you can be your full self, you will be able to experience growth and development and have opportunity, and people get you, right? It's not, you don't have all those other factors to play into your world when you're in a space that is not really designed to support you.
Yep.
And so thinking about how important it is to find that space where you can 100% be yourself
Yes.
is important.
Yep.
And that's what I hope that people who are listening to the podcast will be able to take from this.
Yep.
Just knowing that there are spaces out there, and it may take some, year after year trying to find, because it doesn't all happen at night. I mean, unless you get lucky, right? You get lucky, you find a great
Yep.
school, it's all good until it's not all good.
Right.
Or it's not all good until it's all good, and then you're great. So I know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be done.
Mhm.
It's a long journey, but it's definitely possible.
Mhm.
It's possible to find that. It's possible to know that you make it and have an impact on children, students, families, colleagues, everyone that is around you.
Yep.
And you just got to go for it. You just got to be you and do you. And don't be afraid to, do what you do.
Yep. You have to
With
trust.
without any apologies, right? Just being yourself, doing the things that you love. So I'm thinking about our word of reflection, Miss McRoberts. What is one word that you would hope for listeners to be able to reflect on for this week?
My word is going to be gratitude. And the reason I chose that word is because that is something I would resonate on my drive to work in the mornings, not just thinking about the work that I'm doing, but thinking about my ancestors and what they didn't have the option to do, what they didn't have the choice to do. We didn't always have access to education. We didn't always have the option. So, me pondering on gratitude so much throughout this school year really allowed me to enter into the space feeling covered, knowing it's not just me. Um, Wherever you go, no matter if you feel like you're in a space that is diverse because you see a lot of Black people, your Black experience is different. So focus on that, trust yourself, um, but just show gratitude because as bad as it feels for us to be representing the Black race, a lot of that happens when you work in a space that's not diverse. You're representing you as one person represent a whole culture for people who are ignorant or don't have the information or choosing to not have the information. So as much of that is stressful, it may feel like a burden at times, we still have a job to do. So that's why my word is gratitude.
I love it. I love it. I'm definitely going to be thinking about just gratitude and being thankful,
Mhm.
right? Being thankful to be able to share my experience, to be
Yes.
able to have something to experience
Yeah.
and put it out there to the world, and knowing that a lot of people may or may not have that same experience, but how can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I help other people to be able to gain more knowledge, to have support, to be able to collaborate with, to be able to go on this journey in education with?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my main missions with the podcast, just providing a space that allows people to be themselves
Yeah.
wholeheartedly, and just loving our Black culture and how we bring so much to any space that we walk into.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you being here today
I
and
appreciate you for having me.
sharing your
And
experiences.
this was amazing, and I am so happy for you, and congratulations with the
Thank you.
podcast. And I think it's important for us to have spaces where we can come together and collaborate and share our experiences, because that's going to allow us to go back into the world and feel recharged and feel felt and seen and heard, and to know we have each other's back, we support each other. I think it's really important for Black educators to know that. I mean, listening to the first episode that you did, hearing those statistics is chilling to know, like, wow, that is the world we live in. But it also was like, wow, I feel that every day. I know that to be true because I feel it every day. So I think what you're doing with the podcast is amazing. And I'm excited. I'm tuned in. I'm excited to see where it takes you. And one last thing I think it's important for Black educators to know, I may have said it before, trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust how you feel, because that is going to guide you in your journey. So when you're entering spaces and you're like, I don't really know, there's a reason why you don't really know. Go with that feeling. Now you have to make the decision. Do I want to be the one to change this space and educate this space? Or is where I am in my journey, I can't handle that responsibility right now. So I need to go elsewhere to see if there's somewhere I can feel a little more comfortable with where I'm at. But at the end of the day, you have to trust yourself, because that's going to guide you through your journey.
Amazing. Another Oh, well, thank you so much, Miss McRoberts. And I am so excited for the next episode. Thanks for joining us today. And remember that word of gratitude.